The day of my sister's wedding dawned bright and full of promise. The kind of day that seemed perfectly scripted by fate itself. It was the sort of occasion where joy radiates from every corner, where laughter mingles with the soft rustle of silk dresses and the murmur of well-wishers. Our family, along with friends and loved ones, gathered at the picturesque country estate that had been transformed into a venue of celebration, love, and new beginnings. The air was fragrant with the scent of blooming roses and fresh-cut lilies, mingled with the subtle aroma of fine wines and carefully prepared dishes awaiting the feast. The guests were dressed in their best, the men in tailored suits and the women in flowing gowns that shimmered as they caught the sunlight. Children darted between adults, their excitement infectious, and the elder relatives sat in quiet corners, smiling softly as they soaked in the scene of family unity. My sister, radiant in a gown of delicate lace and satin, moved through the crowd like a queen. Her eyes sparkled with happiness, touched by the excitement and nervousness of the moment. She was surrounded by bridesmaids, friends, and family members, all eager to share in her joy. When she caught my eye, she smiled warmly, a look filled with affection and anticipation for the new life she was about to begin. The groom, handsome and equally nervous, waited at the altar, flanked by his closest friends and brothers. He looked both proud and humbled, his gaze fixed on my sister as she made her way down the aisle. The ceremony promised to be a beautiful celebration of their union, a melding of two families and the forging of new bonds. The fuse of excitement that day was palpable, not just for the couple but for all who had gathered. Stories were swapped, old jokes revived, and memories revisited under the vast blue sky. The camera clicks captured stolen glances, joyful embraces, and the occasional tear shed in silence. It was a day soaked with emotion, hope, and the promise of happiness. Behind the scenes, family members busied themselves setting every detail in place. Tables decked with elegant floral arrangements, chairs draped with ribbons, and a stage decorated for music and speeches to follow. The caterers moved quietly and efficiently, while the wedding planner flitted about, smoothing over any minor concerns to ensure the event ran flawlessly. I found myself swept up in this current of collective joy. As I looked around, I saw cousins reunited after years apart, lifelong friends sharing in the celebration, and parents beaming with pride. The past and future seemed to intertwine seamlessly in the laughter and song that filled the air. Even the weather seemed to conspire with happiness that day. A gentle breeze rustled through the trees, carrying with it the soft melodies of a string quartet performing near the altar. The golden sunlight bathed everything in warmth, casting a glow that made the flowers and the faces of the guests seem almost ethereal. For a moment, it felt as if time itself had paused to honor the love and hope before us. The celebration was more than just a wedding. It was a testament to family, to resilience, and to the unspoken promises we make to one another. Every smile, every handshake, every whispered congratulations added to the intricate tapestry of shared history and new beginnings. Yet beneath the shimmering surface of happiness, subtle currents of tension flowed, small, almost imperceptible signs that not all was as perfect as it seemed. Certain glances held too long, hushed conversations behind closed doors, and a stiffness in some interactions hinted at unresolved conflicts just beneath the surface. Still, those undercurrents were overshadowed by the overwhelming sense of joy and hope. Guests mingled freely, drinks were raised in toasts to love and future happiness, and the music swelled as the afternoon wore on. The wedding ceremony, the vows exchanged, and the tender looks shared by the bride and groom were moments that captured everyone's hearts. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the gardens, the celebration shifted seamlessly into the reception. Tables groaned under the weight of sumptuous food, and laughter rose once more as stories animated the night. The dance floor filled quickly, couples twirled and moved to the rhythm of a live band, their faces glowing with happiness. That day, my sister's wedding was not just a celebration of two people, but a gathering of an extended family woven together by love, shared history, and the hope of renewal. It was a day to remember, marked by beauty, joy, and in that moment, a fragile sense of unity. As the evening unfolded, Little did we know that beneath the festivity, seeds were being sown for conflicts that would soon cast shadows over what should have been the happiest day of our lives. As the wedding celebration blossomed in full swing, laughter echoing, glasses raised, and music weaving through the air, an unexpected tension suddenly shattered the festive mood. My father, usually composed and reserved during family events, suddenly stood abruptly from his seat near the head table. His face, typically calm, was now rigid and stern. With a voice sharp enough to cut through the chatter, he commanded, "Leave now." The words hung heavy, bewildering everyone present. A hush fell over the crowd as all eyes shifted toward him, searching for clarity in his rare, uncharacteristic outburst. The person he addressed, a close family member, froze mid-step, confusion and hurt flashing across their face. Whispers erupted around the room. The joyful ambience fractured instantly, replaced by an uncomfortable stillness thick with unspoken questions. I watched as my father's gaze hardened, his posture unyielding, signaling a clear and authoritative demand rather than a casual remark. No one dared to challenge him. His presence alone was enough to silence objections. The stunned family member, caught off guard, hesitated before eventually retreating, their exit weighed down by both shock and shame. This unexpected command sent ripples through the wedding guests. Murmurs swept discreetly through small clusters, as relatives speculated on the reasons behind such a severe reprimand during what should have been a joyous occasion. Some faces showed sympathy for the one asked to leave, while others seemed uneasy, sensing deeper family conflicts lurking beneath the surface. My sister, radiant moments before, now wore a strained expression, her smile faltering as she tried to comprehend the sudden shift in atmosphere. The groom's joy dimmed, and friends exchanged worried glances, puzzled by the sudden disruption. The wedding planner, sensing the growing discomfort, moved swiftly to steer conversations back to lighter topics, but the damage was done. Tension had settled like a shadow over the gathering. Behind the scenes, whispers revealed fragments of family history, old disputes, festering grudges, and unresolved rivalries that possibly fueled my father's drastic command. It was a powerful reminder that beneath the polished surface of celebrations, family gatherings are often delicate balancing acts where hidden tensions quietly simmer. That moment marked a decisive fracture in the day's joy. The stark authority of my father's words unsettled the family and foreshadowed storms yet to come. What was meant to be a shared celebration of love and unity had been pierced by an unexpected eruption of control and division, leaving everyone to wonder what lay beneath the surface, and what consequences this command would bring in the days ahead. The shock of my father's sudden command to leave now cast a long shadow over the wedding reception, disrupting what should have been an evening of joy and celebration. The stunned silence that followed his words was quickly replaced by a mix of confusion, whispers, and strained smiles as guests tried to process the unexpected tension. The carefully crafted atmosphere of unity and happiness fractured almost instantly. The individual my father had addressed remained frozen for a moment, caught between the shock of being publicly rebuked and the pain of sudden exclusion. Their hurried departure drew glances from nearby guests, some sympathetic, others judgmental, as underlying family dynamics began to unravel in real time. The sense of collective unease grew as people realized that what had seemed like a bright and hopeful occasion was suddenly steeped in unresolved conflict. My sister, the bride, was visibly shaken. Her radiant smile faltered as she struggled to conceal the emotional turmoil behind her poised exterior. The groom, too, wore a look of bewildered concern, casting quick, searching glances toward my father and then toward the retreating family member. Close friends and relatives exchanged uneasy looks, sensing that something far more serious than a minor disagreement had just unfolded. The wedding planner attempted to steer the mood back towards celebration, encouraging guests to raise their glasses and focus on the couple, but the festivity had been irrevocably altered. Conversations grew quieter, more cautious. What had been carefree laughter gave way to hushed discussions about what had transpired and what it might mean for the family. Some guests speculated quietly about the root of the conflict, recalling past tensions that might have contributed to my father's outburst. Old disputes, rivalries, or long-standing grievances suddenly seemed relevant, casting a pall over every interaction. Family members who once shared smiles and embraces now regarded each other with a mixture of suspicion and apprehension. The command, "Leave now," became the unspoken topic of the evening. It created a rift not just between those directly involved but also within the broader family circle. Alliances subtly shifted, and long-held tensions simmered beneath the polite veneer of the reception. The joyous occasion was replaced by an undercurrent of mistrust and unspoken questions about loyalty, fairness, and control. I could feel the weight of the moment settling heavily upon all of us. What was meant to be an event marking a new chapter of love and unity had become a battleground of unresolved emotions and fractured relationships. The evening's atmosphere, once vibrant and carefree, was now thick with the complexity of the family's hidden struggles. As the night wore on, the initial shock evolved into a quiet but persistent tension. The guests' dances were slower, their laughter more subdued, and their conversations punctuated with glances toward my father or the empty seat left by the person who had been told to leave. The wedding, intended to celebrate new beginnings, had unexpectedly become a poignant reminder of the fragile, often painful bonds that held us together, and the fractures waiting to widen. The night after the wedding was far from peaceful. The once joyous celebration, now tainted by my father's abrupt command, gave way to tense and emotionally charged family gatherings behind closed doors. What should have been a time for shared happiness became a crucible in which long-simmering tensions boiled to the surface. As the family retreated from the public eye of the reception, private conversations sparked heated debates. My siblings gathered in small groups, voices low but urgent, airing grievances and confusion over what had happened. The hurt was palpable. Questions about why someone had been suddenly cast out during such a sacred occasion festered into accusations, blame, and raw emotion. My sister, still wearing her wedding dress, was at the center of many conversations. Though radiant earlier in the day, she now bore a look of exhaustion and sorrow. She confided in close relatives and friends, wrestling with conflicting feelings: grief for the disruption of her special day, frustration at unresolved family drama, and an underlying sadness that her happiness had been overshadowed. The person who had been ordered to leave struggled with feelings of humiliation and anger. Their absence weighed heavily on the family dynamic, becoming a symbol of deeper divisions and unspoken resentments. Conversations turned toward the possible reasons behind my father's harsh demand: old wounds, perceived betrayals, or conflicts that had never been fully confronted. Behind closed doors, relationships strained under the weight of these revelations. Some family members took sides passionately, defending or condemning those involved. The room pulsed with tension as deep-seated rivalries and grievances that had long simmered quietly now faced daylight. Amid the turmoil, my father remained a focal point, his motivations questioned, his authority both challenged and feared. Some saw him as a stern guardian of family honor. Others viewed his actions as divisive and controlling. His abrupt command at the wedding became the catalyst for a family reckoning, forcing difficult questions about loyalty, respect, and power within our family structure. Throughout the night, attempts were made at reconciliation, whispers of, "Let's not let this ruin the wedding," or "We need to talk this through." But the fractures were fresh and painful. Silence often fell heavier than words in moments when family members gathered but kept their distance emotionally. This night marked the beginning of a difficult journey, not only to navigate the fallout from my father's shocking outburst, but also to confront the underlying issues that had long haunted us. The wedding, meant to unite and celebrate, had unexpectedly peeled back layers of family complexity, revealing wounds that needed healing but also threatening to tear us apart. In those long hours after the celebration, it became clear that the path forward would be shaped by how we faced these conflicts, whether we chose division and bitterness or resilience and forgiveness. The night's turmoil was a stark reminder that family gatherings, no matter how joyful, often carry within them the echoes of the past and the fragile hopes for the future. The morning after the wedding was heavy with a tense stillness that contrasted sharply with the previous day's festivity. As the sun rose, casting soft light across the quiet rooms of the family home, a different kind of weight filled the air, one of anticipation and uncertainty. It was then that the family lawyer arrived, a figure both familiar and solemn, summoned by the events that had unfolded and the need to address matters that had been long simmering beneath the surface. The lawyer's arrival brought an official air to the fragile situation. Clad in a crisp suit and carrying a leather briefcase, he was the embodiment of order amidst emotional chaos. His presence signaled that what had once been private family concerns were now moving into the realm of formal legal proceedings. The tension in the room tightened as family members gathered hesitantly, aware that the coming moments would bring clarity, but also potential conflict. We convened in the living room, a space usually filled with laughter and conversation, now subdued and heavy with unspoken questions. The lawyer began by acknowledging the difficult circumstances and expressing his role as a facilitator, to present the final wishes of the family's matriarch and ensure her voice was respected beyond her passing. As he opened the carefully sealed envelope containing my grandmother's will, the room grew even quieter. Eyes fixed on the document, hearts pounded with a mix of hope, fear, and curiosity. The lawyer's voice carried steadily as he read the words that would unravel long-held expectations and reveal truths kept hidden until now. The contents of the will were surprising and, for many, unsettling. It became clear that my grandmother, with deliberate thought and clarity, had structured her estate in a way that challenged traditional expectations. Instead of an equal division among heirs, the will favored certain family members, some receiving generous inheritances, others allocated little or nothing. The reasons, embedded in handwritten notes and explanations within the document, pointed toward a desire to reward loyalty, responsibility, and perhaps to rectify past grievances. The announcement sparked a tide of emotions. Some family members smiled quietly, relieved or validated by the recognition they received. Others exchanged shocked glances, disbelief clouding their expressions. Whispers started to ripple through the group, speculating about the implications and the fairness of the distribution. Tensions that had simmered beneath the surface now surged openly. Questions arose about the criteria my grandmother had used to make her decisions, the fairness of rewarding some over others, and the impact on family unity. The lawyer, practiced in such moments, urged calm and patience, reminding everyone that disputes could be addressed through legal channels, but that honoring their grandmother's wishes was paramount. Throughout the reading, my father sat with a complex expression. His earlier outburst at the wedding now cast in a new light given these revelations. It seemed that the will itself was intertwined with family tensions, perhaps serving as the catalyst for the conflict that had surfaced so dramatically the day before. As the lawyer concluded, handing the will to be reviewed privately, a silent understanding passed through the room. This was not just an inheritance of property and money, but a delicate legacy of family histories, loyalties, and unresolved emotions. The reading marked the start of a new chapter, one where love, loyalty, and legalities would collide in a struggle to preserve what remained of our fractured family. The arrival of the lawyer and the reading of my grandmother's will was a turning point, stripping away illusions and forcing us all to confront the complexities of inheritance that go far beyond material wealth. It was a moment where the past met the present, illuminating the tensions beneath the family's surface and heralding the difficult road ahead. The reading of Grandma's will unfolded with a weight that filled the room with a mix of anticipation, apprehension, and disbelief. The family lawyer stood before us, the sealed document now opened and ready to disclose its contents. As he began to read aloud, every ear within that room caught every word with heightened attention, knowing that what was being revealed would change the course of many lives and relationships forever. From the outset, it was clear that this was no ordinary inheritance. Grandma had taken pains to outline her wishes with meticulous detail, surprising many by deviating from the traditional equal division among her grandchildren and children. Instead, she had crafted a will that reflected years of observation, judgment, and unspoken evaluations of behavior, character, and loyalty. The first notable revelation was how the majority of the estate, the family home, substantial savings, and cherished heirlooms, were left to my sister, the bride from the day before. This decision was met with mixed reactions. Some smiled warmly, understanding that Grandma had seen in her a steadfastness and dedication throughout the years. Others, however, stiffened, sensing an imbalance that disrupted expectations and stirred resentment. Further reading revealed that my father was left a token inheritance, something symbolic but modest compared to what others received. This ignited murmurs among the gathered family, many wondering what had contributed to such a seemingly deliberate slight. The tone of the will's language hinted at disapproval of choices my father had made, perhaps casting judgment on past actions that had strained family unity. Even more contentious was the revelation that one cousin, previously assumed to be a primary heir, was left with barely anything, while a niece, long perceived as an outsider, was unexpectedly favored with a generous legacy. The unexpected distributions challenged assumptions and prompted whispered debates about fairness, favoritism, and the reasons behind Grandma's decisions. Throughout the reading, the lawyer provided context based on handwritten notes left by Grandma beside crucial clauses. These notes spoke of forgiveness, lessons learned, and hopes for the future, urging the family to look beyond material wealth and focus on responsibility, respect, and the preservation of family harmony. Despite the lawyer's calm and professional delivery, the emotional undercurrents surged beneath the surface. Faces turned pale. Some eyes glistened with unshed tears, while others flashed with anger. The reading brought to the forefront old conflicts and renewed grievances that many had hoped were long buried. The stark reality was that Grandma's will, rather than uniting us, had laid bare the fractures within our family. It became evident that her decisions were meant to serve as a reckoning, acknowledging loyalty and responsibility, while addressing perceived betrayals and neglect. This legal document was not mere property distribution. It was a message, a final testament to the values she held dear and the legacy she wanted to secure. As the reading concluded, the room was heavy with silence. Some members sought solace in one another's arms, while others withdrew, grappling with feelings of shock, betrayal, or acceptance. The reading of the will had done more than unveil financial matters. It exposed the delicate balance of love, disappointment, and expectation that defined our family's story. That day, the will became not only a legal instrument but a catalyst for transformation, forcing us all to confront truths invisible in everyday life and challenging us to reconsider what family, inheritance, and legacy truly mean. It was the beginning of a difficult journey toward understanding, acceptance, and perhaps reconciliation. The moment the contents of Grandma's will were fully revealed, the room erupted into a whirlwind of emotions, igniting tensions that had long lain dormant within the family. What had begun as a quiet, formal reading descended rapidly into heated debates, whispered accusations, and fractious disputes that threatened to unravel the fragile fabric holding us together. Some family members felt deeply wounded and betrayed. Those who received little or nothing voiced their anguish loudly, their eyes flashing with disbelief and hurt. They challenged the fairness of the will, interpreting Grandma's decisions as unjust favoritism or harsh punishment. Emotions ran high and accusations flew, some claiming manipulation behind the scenes, others denouncing perceived failures to uphold family duties. Alliances quickly formed along unexpected lines. Siblings who had once been close now found themselves on opposing sides, fueled by jealousy, resentment, and a profound sense of injustice. Heated private conversations spilled into tense group discussions, with voices raised, tears shed, and years of unresolved conflicts bubbling to the surface. The favored heirs, meanwhile, grappled with their own mix of emotions. While some accepted the inheritance with a sense of responsibility or gratitude, others felt uncomfortable, caught between loyalty to family and the knowledge that the will's contents would cause pain and division. Their inheritance became a heavy burden, laden with expectations and the weight of fractured relationships. Legal threats and considerations arose almost immediately as disgruntled family members discussed contesting the will. Talk of lawyers, court battles, and protracted disputes replaced the warmth and joy that typically surrounded family milestones. The possibility of fracturing the family legacy into endless litigation loomed large, casting a shadow over even the happiest memories. Amidst the turmoil, the atmosphere at family gatherings grew colder and more strained. Holiday plans became fraught with tension, invitations were extended cautiously, and once close relationships cooled. Trust eroded as suspicion and bitterness took root, and the sense of a united family giving way to factions and divisions. Yet, even in the midst of such conflict, there were glimmers of hope. Some members advocated for open dialogue, urging patience, understanding, and the possibility of reconciliation. They sought to remind everyone that the inheritance was not just about wealth, but also about maintaining the bonds that had woven the family together over generations. The reading of Grandma's Will thus became a flashpoint, a moment that exposed raw wounds and challenged the family's ability to move forward. It tested loyalties, morals, and the very definitions of fairness and respect within our circle. The conflict sparked by the will's contents demanded that each of us confront uncomfortable truths and reconsider how we related to one another. What followed was a period of emotional upheaval, soul-searching, and difficult conversations. It was clear that the family's path would no longer be the same, and that healing would require courage, humility, and perhaps the willingness to forgive even the deepest hurts. The fallout from the will's reading marked not just a dispute over inheritance, but a profound examination of family, identity, and the legacy of love and loss. The revelation of Grandma's will and the conflicts it ignited struck at the heart of sibling relationships, exposing fractures and igniting rivalries that had long been simmering beneath the surface. The once close bonds between brothers and sisters suddenly felt fragile and strained, challenged by feelings of betrayal, jealousy, and hurt that the unexpected inheritance stirred deeply within each of us. For my sister, the bride from the day before, the generous inheritance became a source of both pride and isolation. While some siblings congratulated her softly, others withdrew, their smiles tinged with resentment. What had been a joyous occasion to celebrate her new marriage was now overshadowed by questions of favoritism and fairness, placing her in the uncomfortable position of both beneficiary and target. My siblings, who received less or nothing at all, expressed their sense of injustice in private and public conversations alike. Old rivalries flared as accusations flew, claims that some had been more favored due to perceived obedience, distance, or supposed lack of responsibility. The quiet competition that shadowed our childhood reemerged with new intensity, fueled now not just by sibling dynamics, but also by the tangible stakes of wealth and property. The will's uneven distribution forced difficult conversations among us. Long-standing grievances were dredged up. Past slights and unresolved conflicts were re-examined with fresh wounds. Some siblings confronted each other directly, their exchanges sometimes bitter and cutting, while others resorted to cold silence or avoidance in an effort to preserve a semblance of peace. Emotional divides deepened as the siblings struggled to reconcile love and loyalty with feelings of betrayal and disappointment. Support systems shifted, with some siblings leaning on one another for strength while others found themselves isolated. The will had fractured not only the family estate but also the foundation of trust and companionship we once shared. Amidst the turmoil, efforts emerged to bridge the gap. Open conversations were initiated by those desperate to mend relationships, seeking to understand each other's perspectives and heal the emotional wounds caused by the will. Therapy sessions, mediated discussions, and heartfelt apologies became part of the ongoing process to rebuild fractured ties. Yet healing was slow and uneven. For some siblings, resentment lingered, their bonds weakened or, in some cases, broken beyond repair. The legacy of the inheritance controversy extended well beyond financial matters, shaping how we related to one another and challenging us to redefine what family truly meant. Our sibling relationships had entered a new chapter, one marked by complexity, pain, and the difficult work of forgiveness. The will had revealed not only material divisions but also emotional ones, forcing us all to confront the shadows in our shared past and to seek ways to move forward, whether together or apart. In the end, the impact on sibling relationships was profound and lasting. What began as a legal document had become a catalyst for reflection, growth, and sometimes heartbreak, reminding us that family is both a source of great strength and deep vulnerability, especially when tested by secrets, loss, and the weight of inheritance. The wedding day was vibrant and full of joy, marked by heartfelt embraces, laughter, and the soft murmur of family reunions. Everyone was beautifully dressed, the air thick with excitement and anticipation. My sister, radiant in her gown, moved gracefully among guests, her smile lighting up the room. The guests, a blend of close family and dear friends, had gathered not only to witness the union but to celebrate a fresh start, a merging of lives and families. The venue was adorned with flowers and delicate decorations. Music floated on a gentle breeze, and the atmosphere was one of hope and shared happiness. Yet beneath the surface of smiles and toasts, subtle expressions and whispered glances hinted at unspoken tensions among family members. Old rivalries and hidden resentments lingered quietly, threatening to disrupt the day's harmony. Though the ceremonies and celebrations painted a perfect picture, the undercurrents of unresolved conflict gave the day a fragile edge, foreshadowing the storm that was about to unfold. My father's role in the unfolding drama surrounding my sister's wedding and the reading of Grandma's will was complex and pivotal, revealing layers of motivations shaped by past disappointments, protective instincts, and perhaps a desire to control a family slipping beyond his grasp. His behavior during the wedding, particularly the unexpected and harsh command to leave now, was a dramatic expression of deep-seated tensions that had long been simmering beneath the surface. Throughout the wedding day, his presence was marked by a quiet authority, a man aware of the fragile balance of family relationships and the emotional stakes resting on the event's success. However, the sudden outburst that shattered the joyous atmosphere exposed a crack in that composure. His command was not just an impulsive moment but the eruption of accumulated frustration, possibly directed at perceived disloyalty or disruption within the family circle. In the wake of the wedding, as emotions ran high, my father's actions suggested a desire to assert control in the chaos that threatened to consume the family. His stern demeanor and refusal to engage in conciliatory dialogue during the initial fallout highlighted a man struggling to maintain order amid crumbling bonds. His attitude reflected a sense of responsibility to uphold family honor and values as he saw them, even if it meant alienating some relatives. The reading of Grandma's will added another layer to understanding his behavior. The will's uneven distribution, leaving him with only a token inheritance, seemed to echo the disappointment and estrangement that had long defined parts of his relationship with the family. It suggested that Grandma, in her wisdom or frustration, had made a statement through the will, one that perhaps my father struggled to accept or challenge. Behind closed doors, conversations revealed my father's conflicting emotions: grief for the loss of a matriarch, frustration at his diminished role in the family's affairs, and a fierce protectiveness over those he still regarded as his closest kin. His past decisions, mistakes, and relationships with individual family members colored his reactions, shaping a man caught between pride and vulnerability. Some family members perceived his actions as authoritarian and divisive, blaming him for escalating conflicts and deepening divisions. Others saw him as a guardian trying to hold the family together, albeit through rigid and sometimes harsh means. His insistence on upholding certain family principles, regardless of the emotional cost, painted a portrait of a man wrestling with his own sense of loss and identity. Ultimately, my father's role was both catalyst and consequence, a figure at the center of family storms, embodying the complexities of love, power, and legacy. His actions at the wedding and in response to the will underscored how personal histories and unspoken resentments shape family dynamics in profound ways. Understanding him required acknowledging the pain and fear that underlay his strictness and the difficulty of balancing authority with compassion in a family fractured by loss and expectation. My father was neither villain nor hero but a man caught in the turbulence of his own making, navigating the delicate and often painful terrain of family loyalty, disappointment, and the struggle to be heard and respected. The family stood at a crossroads, shattered by the revelations of Grandma's will and the storm that had erupted at my sister's wedding. We faced choices that would shape not only immediate futures but the legacy we would leave for generations to come. The path before us was fraught with difficult decisions, frail hopes for reconciliation, and the looming possibility of permanent division. In the wake of conflict, there was a fragile pause, a moment when the weight of loss and betrayal pressed heavily upon each person, compelling us to consider what truly mattered. Could we rise above anger, resentment, and pride to rebuild the bonds that once united us? Or would the fissures deepen, fragmenting our family forever? Some relatives reached out tentatively, seeking dialogue and understanding. Efforts to convene family meetings and counseling sessions reflected a collective yearning to heal, even if the road ahead was uncertain. These initiatives underscored an awareness that material inheritance paled beside the emotional richness of love, trust, and mutual respect. Yet there was no simple fix. Forgiveness demanded time, humility, and the willingness to face painful truths. Old wounds needed tending. Resentments required airing and acknowledging. The process was slow, often marked by setbacks and renewed tensions. Some family members distanced themselves, unwilling or unable to bridge the chasms that had opened. At the heart of these struggles was the challenge of redefining family, not as an unbreakable institution bound solely by blood or wealth, but as a living, evolving connection built on empathy and commitment. The inheritance debates became metaphors for deeper questions about loyalty, identity, and belonging. The choices we made in that period would echo far beyond legal documents and possessions. They shaped the stories we told, the memories we honored, and the futures we dared to imagine together. For some, the path led to renewed unity, forged through difficult conversations and the courage to forgive. For others, it resulted in irrevocable estrangement, a painful acknowledgement that some divides could not be crossed. Through it all, the family learned that legacies are not just about the wealth left behind but about the values passed down and the resilience of love in the face of hardship. Our collective journey became a testament to the complexity of human relationships, the intertwining of joy and pain, loyalty and betrayal. As we stood at this crossroads, the question remained, would we choose to heal or to fracture further? The answer was neither simple nor guaranteed, but the very act of confronting this choice was a step toward hope. It was a recognition that families, like all living things, must navigate storms to grow stronger, even if the process is messy and uncertain. In the end, the wedding and the will left us with more than conflict. They left us with an opportunity. An opportunity to redefine who we were as a family and to find new ways to connect beyond the shadow of disappointment and loss. The future remained unwritten, a delicate promise balanced between past pain and the hope for forgiveness and renewal.